in Winchester, at WinCam. The views and opinions on visual radio are those of the host and his guests, and are not necessarily those of the staff, the members, and the board of directors of Winchester Community Access and Media, and all our dozens, well, we have over 24 stations, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and Boston Neighborhood Network, and Somerville Community Access TV, and CCTV Cambridge, and MATV, which will be called Ron Cox Television soon. Ronnie's going to take over the world, and SATV Salem, and Bill Ricker TV, and Burlington TV, and Woburn TV, and Stoneham TV, and Wakefield, and Hudson, Winthrop. I was doing my show for years at Winthrop. I got to go visit Mike and Kirk. You'd know Kurt because he does a show called Gangrene. Kurt over at Winthrop. I'll give you everyone a little tour of public access television. We're on in Lowell, LTC now, Lowell. We're up there. We're all over the place, and we're expanding. I don't know why. Why do we do it? I don't know. But I got fun stuff to talk about tonight. We got a Black Sabbath DVD. These are Blu-rays. So I went out and got myself a Blu-ray player. And I got a really good deal on it, too, because, you know, you've got the regular DVDs, and you got the TV show. You know, this is hot off the presses, people. You'll be seeing this. This is Mark Farner of Grand Funk Railroad, Burton Cummings of the Guess Who, and Burton Cummings and Mark Farner were on the show. We edited today. It's a 51-minute program. But you can imagine, creating TV, I want to make sure everything's running properly. So the Blu-ray player is awesome. Plug it into the other deck, which is a DVD player with a VHS player. And I got an old VHS player in the middle. So this is right in our living room, okay? We have media everywhere. It's a big, beautiful bookcase. And in the bookcase is the TV. And then the whole media center where I crank out the shows and send them out to other stations, like I just mentioned. The Manhattan's show is interesting because it's got to be 29 minutes. And my program's 55 minutes. So, you know, it's two-parters for New York. Anyway, I had a lot of fun reviewing The Doors. These wonderful Blu-rays. Here's a When You're Strange by The Doors. I have not reviewed this one yet, but I did review L.A. Woman yesterday. So, The Doors, it's like, yes, last year was like the year of The Doors, 2011. So this is a film called When You're Strange, a film about The Doors, which I've got to watch and review. And this is Mr. Mojo Rising, the story of L.A. Woman. Now, I was like 16, 17 years old. I was 16 years old when L.A. Woman came out. And there was a very controversial cover because this cover that you see, The Doors, well, there was like saran wrap in the middle, if you will, plastic sheet on the original cover. And if you pull the album out and flip it over, there's a telephone pole with Jim Morrison across the telephone pole as if he's being crucified. Because, of course, there was a whole court case with Jim Morrison, and he was found guilty twice. Two different charges he was found guilty on. So he ran off to Paris. Now, let's have some fun. Conspiracy theories abound. Saturday is the 42nd anniversary of the passing of Arlington resident Alan Wilson. Alan Wilson founded a band that played Woodstock. They were called Canned Heat. Had a big song called Going Up the Country. Another big song called On the Road Again. The band had a third hit, Let's Work Together, the old Wilbert Harrison tune. So Al Wilson lived up in Arlington. Alan Wilson, not Al Wilson of the Beach Boys. No, wait, there's no Al Wilson of the Beach Boys. It's Al Jardine and Brian Wilson. Got it. Okay, but Alan Wilson lived in Arlington, and he died September 1st, 1970. Now, that night he was supposed to play with Jimi Hendrix, and he did not, obviously, but the band did. The band got on the plane, they went to Germany, they did the festival with 10 Years After and Jimi Hendrix, found out that Alan Wilson was dead. September 18th, Jimi Hendrix dies. October 4th, Janis Joplin dies. The next year, April 19th, LA Woman comes out. Now, the best way to sell a record is to have one of the band members, especially the lead singer, no longer be on the planet. So Jim Morrison allegedly died on July 3rd, 1971. Coincidentally, about 2 months after LA Woman, which really propelled interest in the Doors because it was front page news. So there's a song on here called Changeling. You want to come on the air, Jeff?
Sure.
Get a chair, and you might have to fade out a bit, and then when you walk off the set, you can fade back in. Fade out. See this fade? It's magically fading out. Jeff Dearman. Now, move it that way so you can sit there. There you go. A little bit more, I think. I'm looking at the... You can fade it out. You can do the long shot. There you go. Put the chair, and then you can do a tight shot when you get back off. So anyway, on this album is a song called The Changeling. And I'll ask Jeff Dearman his thoughts. But The Changeling, if you know what a changeling is, in Star Trek, is it the Final Frontier movie? No. The movie after the Search for Spock, then they did there was a movie. Okay, I'm going to put the mic right over here, and I'm going to yell. So, Jeff Dearman and I are doing visual radio tonight. Did you see the Star Trek movie with a exile Kirk and the other fellow?
I'm sure I have at one point. I've seen most of them.
All right, so Iman, David Bowie's wife, plays a changeling. So she can change, she turns into Captain Kirk, remember that?
Yep.
Okay, that's a changeling.
Yeah.
So on LA Woman,
Mm-hmm.
Jim Morrison's recording this album. He'd already been convicted in the Florida court of exposing himself on stage, which I don't think he did. He was waving his shirt to the girls in the audience. You want to see it? You want to see it? You know? This is a family show, so he was probably talking about my bottled water. You want to see it, but they arrested him on stage. The concert was probably short. My bass player was actually at the show. I got to call him up. Oh man, I should have called him tonight. Talk about Jim Morrison. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that in the coming weeks. I don't think I have him programmed in. My old bass player from like 1972. He was at the Doors show he was in my band in 78. So anyway, all right. The changeling is someone who morphs into something else.
Yep.
Now, you got millions of dollars. You're Jim Morrison of the Doors.
Yeah.
And the government's coming after you for freedom of speech. What do? You vanish. The Seychelles Islands. So Ray Manzarek came on my show, the keyboard player of the Doors, and he said, well, Jim showed me these brochures and said, a man could get lost here. But these are the clues that, the Beatles, remember the Paul is Dead thing? Well, there were clues everywhere. LA Woman is one big album chock full of clues. City of Night was a very risque book about very seedy happenings in LA of a very adult nature, if you get my drift. In LA Woman, he keeps saying, City of Night, City of Night. So the book is by John Recchi, and I'm not going to go into it, but I have read it, and it's extremely raw. And that's what Jim Morrison's talking about in LA Woman. So there's a lot of hidden messages, and this is a cool disc, and there are 2 unreleased songs on here. So they re-released a 40th anniversary double disc with a lot of outtakes of the same songs on the album. And then these 2, She Smells So Nice is this long bluesy thing, which goes into Rock Me Baby. And then Crawling King Snake, the great John Lee Hooker tune that he does. So how are you, Jeff Dearman?
I am great. I'm great. How are you, Joe?
I'm good, too. So you have a lot of bands coming on. Who's coming on tomorrow?
Well, next up for the Music Closet is my first international.
You can hold that if you want.
Sure. Or I can clip it on.
No, don't clip it on.
Oh,
I'll
hold it. Let's see. I have my first international band coming to the Music Closet. That will be That will be taped tomorrow in the studio from about 2:30 to 4:30 or so. Usually takes about 2 hours with load in and all that, and sound checks, and then they play for about an hour. The name is Aria Morgan, ARIAMORGAN, if anyone wants to look her up on the internet.
Viewbook.
Yep.
Facetube.
Yep, Facetube. All those sites that people use.
There's too many of them now. I can't keep up.
iTunes Nation.
Is there iTunes Nation or just Renegade Nation?
She's from Jamaica, and she's been up here on she's a reggae artist. She's been up here for about 2 weeks now through a tour in Boston.
She's up here for 2 weeks, and she's going to be here on the Music Closet. And Jeff does an amazing job. I want to know, how many bands do you think you've recorded so far? I'll hold it.
Just like you're interviewing, right?
Yeah. Burton Cummings here.
Let's see. I started in about, I would say, 2007, 2008 was my first show, and since that time, I would say at least 20, probably maybe 30 different groups over about 2 years, because I took a little break between 2007 and 2009, but I would probably say 30 or 40 now, actually, because...
Do you bicycle the tapes like I do? Do you get them to other stations?
I've tried, but I haven't really, just with the cost of the DVDs and everything, the time it takes to make them, hopefully I'll be able to get it on one of those servers, as you were talking about, the access.
Mass Access is one, and then there's another one, Peg Media.
Yep. And
there must be others.
Maybe a few other places, local ones around here I can get a DVD to or something.
Yeah, like Woburn and Stoneham, and,
Speaking of which, you can look up the Music Closet on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube site, it's www.youtube.com/,
J. Dearman 77.
Yes, J. Dearman 77, and you can access all my clips there. I put them up on the internet right after the band, so they can have a clip, and they get basically the bands get a free music video that normally could cost anywhere between $300 and $700. So if
Could cost thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, if you produce it with a particular company, they might charge you a lot of money, whereas I do it for free and just as professional. So.
And WinCam is just very generous with its time, so the bands come in and out of here. And you've preserved some friends of mine, Fox Pass and Cadillac Heart. And these are friends of mine that...
I have Ball and Chain coming in December.
Ball and Chain are my boys. It's Joe Black is an old dear friend of mine. We all go back in the rock and roll scene. I talked to Karen DiBiase today. I said, Karen, come over to the show. She's on in Somerville, and she's in the band Girl on Top. But we've all been kicking around forever. That's so cool you got Joe Black. Yeah. Because when you're bringing in these legendary Boston rockers, we're getting them on tape, and a lot of these guys, boy, if you put in Balloon on YouTube and Green Monalishi, which is a Fleetwood Mac tune, so Green Monalishi and Balloon, you'll see Joe Black with Charlie Farron doing the old Fleetwood Mac tune. That's a really fun black and white video. So that's up on YouTube. There's a lot of great stuff up there. I'm going to make a few phone calls. Anything you want to say to the world?
I'd just like to say, no matter what your political opinion is, please get out the vote. We need more young people and even older people to actually go out to the polls and vote, because our country is a unique country, and a lot of countries don't have the freedoms that we have to express our viewpoints and opinions. And no matter what your position on the issues, get out and vote, because
you're going to get me political here. Because I think that First Amendment has to be fought for. I don't think we have a First Amendment.
Right. No.
I think it's an illusion.
Yeah.
So, and I think the voting, we have to be vigilant, not only at the voting booth, but we can't have the vote suppressed. Certain people out there don't want some people voting, and they're saying we have to protect the vote. They're trying to keep people away. They should be. Do you know that there's been very, very little voter fraud? because there's no money in it.
Right.
Do you know that Edgar Allan Poe probably died because of voter fraud?
Really?
Yeah, you know the great Edgar Allan Poe, the Raven?
Of course.
In the old days, when you didn't have television and you didn't have monitors, people were buying votes. So people would go in and do a lot of voter fraud. And Edgar Allan Poe was so broke, he was getting paid to go in and vote. This is what I read. Now, this might be incorrect, so go vet it yourself, people. But, and they would feed them alcohol and this, and he may have died in a drunken stupor. His death is very mysterious. But
He wasn't walled up in a
no,
in a wine cask.
no, but he had a very, very psychotic
Castle
life.
Amontillado.
No, he had a very strange life. He had a very sad life, and he only became famous, what was over 100 years after his passing. I'm just guessing, so go to Google and find out the facts.
Have they ever done a
I'll just
movie
steer you that way. Sure they have.
on the Raven?
Lou Reed did a whole album on the Raven.
Really?
Yep. But Phil Hopkins is my next guest. He wanted to be on at 8:15, but Jeff Dearman was kind enough to come on. I want to give Jeff a little time.
I'd like to say one more thing, if you don't mind, before I head off. With school starting up, guys, please, whether you're in high school, junior high, middle school, elementary school, please don't bully people. It's not cool, guys.
It's very wrong.
No matter who the person is, whether they're gay or
I heard one of the presidential candidates was a bully,
yeah.
but I'm not going to say his name.
Whether they were different, whether they have a different religion or race, just accept everybody, because you never know who they're going to be later in life, and they might be the one person who could help you out later in life, and you bullied them their whole life. It's just not cool. Too many people are committing suicide and getting hurt for it, and guys, just think about what you do and what you say, because it will impact you later in life. So
I agree. That's why I'm voting for the minority guy. I'm not going to vote for the bully.
yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for having me on, Joe. I appreciate it.
Would you mind tightening the shot up?
Certainly.
Thank you. And that's Jeff Dearman with his great show. I was ribbing him there, but the audience doesn't know that. But it was fun, Jeff. We're going to have you back. And we're going to call Phil Hopkins up, if he's around. And Phil Hopkins runs the, I might have put it in the wrong place. So let's try this. That doesn't work either. Okay, people, bear with me. Sorry. We're doing live TV. There we go. That's the phone line I wanted. One ringy-dingy. Lily Tomlin. Do you like her, Jeff?
What, Lily?
Lily Tomlin's a great comedian. Thanks, Jeff, for being on the show. That's cool.
Hello?
Phil Hopkins?
Joe,
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you on this wonderful eve before the Blue Moon event? Are you familiar with the Blue Moon tomorrow night?
The Blue Moon is happening because Alan Wilson died on September 1st.
It makes a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it?
And I'm playing on September 1st.
Now, where is your gig?
I'm playing Club Bohemia, Mickey Bliss's club in Central Square.
The old Club Bohemia, when it was, I believe, in Somerville or right in the Cambridge-Somerville line.
You got it, Kirkland Cafe.
Oh, that's what it was the Kirk, because he did the several nights for many years over at that venue, didn't he?
Yeah, and then they closed it down, and ever since it's been closed, I went by the other night, it's just a boarded-up building. It's terrible because it was such a nice place.
It was a terrific venue, and they were very good to the bands, it was one of the last venues in the city that actually treated the musicians and the bands well.
Well, Mickey's still the guy.
Well, I'm glad you're going, and I'm glad you're playing. Who are the musicians for the gig?
Well, I'm only guest starring because my old guitar player, Danny Rebar from New York,
Yeah.
he used to live with me here in Woburn, and we put out my second album in Paris, Love and Flame. So Danny is in a band called Annie Activator, and they're very, very good. It's a girl singer, 3 pieces behind her, and the real tight, nice pop songs. Blondie would appreciate them.
I saw Blondie when she came through Boston, not last year, the year before, and I have to tell you, Clem Burke is one of my all-time favorite drummers. And the enthusiasm, at this point in life, the enthusiasm that he still plays with, because it's contagious. Have you seen Clem Burke live ever?
I saw Blondie back in the day at the club in Cambridge.
You know, Clem Burke is one of these musicians who he will go out with music. You know, he was in the reincarnated version of the Plimsouls. They put an album out maybe 15 years ago, and he joined up with Peter Case and the Plimsouls, and they made a terrific album that Clem Burke played on. And then he played with Hugh Cromwell, who was the fellow from the Stranglers. So he's one of these guys who's just, he's out there playing with everyone, and he still plays great, and he's one of my all-time favorite drummers.
Now, Phil, how is the Kowloon doing?
Kowloon's doing great. You know, it's 62 years this fall, and interestingly enough, this whole Cowsill show, which was originally going to happen at the Kowloon, come to find out, Andy takes a vacation with his wife every year, so he's going to be out of town. And I really wanted to bring the Cowsills to the Kowloon. And I said, you know, this is going to be kind of a drag if we miss it, because they've got a couple of other shows. They've got the B.B. Kings they're playing, I believe, on the Monday that weekend. They're playing somewhere in Connecticut. And I said to Andy, I said, what would you think about doing the Kowloon? He said, I'd love to do it, but I'm going to be out of town. And the whole thing with doing a show with the Kowloon is you have to have Andy there. I mean, he loves it, he's into it, and the fact that he was out of town, I said, it's not going to happen. Fortunately, there's a venue in Gloucester, Massachusetts that's recently reopened. They used to be in a different location. And this particular venue is called the Cape Ann Community Cinema. And they've been having a lot of great independent films, a lot of live operas, and the fellow Rob Newton, who is the owner and the actual programmer, he's a music fan. And I asked him, I said, how would you feel about bringing the Cowsills to Gloucester? He said, you know, I'd be totally up for it. I think it's a great idea. And then I went on YouTube, and this is the power of the internet. I found out that there was a documentary that's probably about 2 years old that is still trying to get funding to get released on home video, called Family Band. And it's the Cowsills story. And it's made the rounds at several film festivals, and it's had terrific reviews. And I said, you got to be kidding. You couldn't tailor-make this any better than bringing a group to a movie theater to actually perform and then screen the film. So what we're doing is on the 13th of September, they're going to perform I believe a full set. There's going to be a live Q&A with the Cowsills, and they're going to screen this terrific movie, which I haven't seen the film, Joe, but I have seen the trailer. I don't know if you get a chance to watch the trailer or not on YouTube, but it looks terrific.
Now, I sent you my interview with Bob Cowsill.
I saw that. That was that in the Esplanade?
Esplanade, July 26, 2008. It was Bobby Hebb's birthday, I remember. And Bob said that there was a documentary in the works, so...
Well, and you know, Bob and Susan and Paul, they're all performing that night. Now, I'm not certain what's going to happen with the rest of the group. If it's going to be a full set or an acoustic set. That's sort of we're going to play it by ear and see how that works out, as far as if it's going to be a full band or if they're going to do a stripped down version. But it's going to be terrific. The venue is above Mystery Train. You know, you're familiar with Mystery Train Records.
I didn't know they were in Gloucester.
Well, you know, a lot of people didn't know they were even still around because, you know, Jack, who's owned the shop for well over 20 years, moved to Gloucester probably about 15 years ago. And the new location on Main Street is actually exactly where the theater is. So upstairs from Mystery Train is the Cape Ann Community Cinema.
Now, do you know how I know Rob Newton?
No.
We interview film directors, and I interviewed Jodie Foster, and I think he was part of the roundtable.
No kidding.
Yes, so if you go to YouTube and put my name and Jodie Foster, you'll see the roundtable, and you'll probably see Rob Newton there. I'm sure that was the one he was at.
Well, he's a tremendous supporter of independent film, and he's really done a tremendous job bringing a lot of shows. He's got, if you go on their website, CapeAnnCommunityCinema.com, they have a schedule for the month of September, and the theme during the month of September, it's Fall into Rhythm. 10 days of movies celebrating music. And some of the films that they're screening, they're absolutely terrific. He's got the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, which is going to be off the recent HD restoration that was done. They've got the new Neil Young film, the Neil Young's Journeys, which is supposed to be terrific. And he also has a lot of interesting, eclectic, independent film. He's got the music from The Big House, which is a documentary about this Canadian blues singer. So it's cool because you get to go to a record store. You can go and do some crate digging and get some old vinyl. In this case, you can actually maybe buy some Cowsills records and come upstairs and have them signed by the members and see the film. And it's such an intimate venue. You can bring your, at one point you could bring your own food in. I think he can still do that. And now he has a beer and wine license. So it should be a lot of fun.
I can't wait to have Robert on. He was going to be on tonight, thanks to you. He had something at the theater he had to do.
Well, he's a one-man army, and he's the ticket taker, he's the concession stand operator, he's the booker, he's the promoter, he's writing the blog. So I can see why he'd be not able to make it. But I know he was very enthusiastic to talk about the show, and obviously talk to you about coming and potentially maybe even interviewing the group.
It's fun. We just want to have fun, pop culture and fun.
It is fun, and at this stage in life, whether it's the Kowloon or the Cape Ann Community Cinema, to be able to see these shows and have an intimate setting, and it's really a terrific thing, and I'm thrilled that this is happening. Gloucester is really a terrific venue for a lot of groups because there's not only this great movie theater that has live bookings, but there's several other venues that have been booking live and original music for many years. So I'm finding that a lot of these musicians are kind of moving in this direction where they want to come up here and perform, and it's terrific. You can go out more or less any night of the week and hear live music, and in most cases, original live music.
Wow. Phil, hold that thought for a second. Hey, Jeff, can you get the door for me? Thank you very much. Jeff's my director, and he's out there. Thank you, Jeff Dearman. And anyone coming to the Kowloon?
Well, we talked about some potential future shows where it's interesting what works at Kowloon and what doesn't. You've been to enough shows to know that there's a certain classic rock and oldies that fit in, and I've been trying to think of, what other shows can we bring to the venue that would actually fit the mix. And I'll run it by you. The Smithereens put on a Beatles tribute show. Are you familiar with it?
I think I've heard of it.
So the Smithereens released a record a few years ago called Meet the Smithereens, which was a complete tribute to Meet the Beatles. And they've been doing that for probably 4 or 5 years. And you can actually book them as the Smithereens performing the Beatles Meet the Beatles.
And I think the Beatles is just so important today because of the lack of radio. I mean, Oldies 103 take, off the air. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And in fact, I emailed Barry Scott because Barry was one of the people that actually was probably instrumental in getting the Cowsills to Boston for the first time after being reunited 20 years ago.
It's just this important stuff. I was friends with Barry Cowsill. Did you know him?
I didn't know him, but of course I know the sad story of what happened, and that's a tragic story.
Yeah, because Deborah Scott from WCGY, I was up at CGY.
Well, Debbie Cowsill.
Right, she married Barry.
That's right.
But I met Barry down at Normandy Sound way back when, because they lived in Rhode Island, and I was recording in Rhode Island, and it's, the community. So Barry, losing Barry and Katrina, it was very hard.
Yeah, it was interesting because I had heard about that. Was Susan Cowsill living in New Orleans?
I don't know about Susan, but I think Debbie Scott's in L.A. because she's on my Facebook.
I have not talked to her for probably well over 20 years. I remember when she was working at the station.
Go to my Facebook, and I think you can look her up. If you go to my friends list,
She was another one who was a huge supporter of local music. She had her own show. I forget the name of it, but it was centered around local music.
And that's how I met her. And she interviewed Jimmy Miller, the Rolling Stones producer. I was representing Jimmy.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you talk about someone like Jimmy Miller, because you're right. When he was here, when he was working out of, what was the studio he was working out of locally?
Well, we had Mission Control up at Westford, and we were working out of a number of studios. One up in the Methuen area. The guy, Pat Costa, his studio. Remember him? He had the radio stations.
I do. I remember him, and then I remember the, was it Phil Green's studio he was working at?
Yeah, that's in Rhode Island, where I met Barry Cowsill. I brought Jimmy down to Phil Green's studio. And I had Phil Green on the air, about 4 months ago?
In Normandy Sound.
So Normandy no longer exists, but Phil is still an engineer. And we had, if you look on YouTube and put in Phil Green and Joe Vig, you'll get the new interview.
Oh, that's terrific. It's great. He was a very well-known engineer in Normandy, obviously, back in, the 1980s. Was really, one of the, Synchro Sound in Normandy, and those were the high-end go-to studios if you actually were looking to make a professional demo or actually make your record.
And he was the guitar player in what band?
Phil Green was the guitar player.
And George was the singer.
Was it Duke and the Drivers?
Nope, close. Swallow.
Swallow. That I never would have pulled that out, but only you would know that.
And George, what was George? You know who I mean? George Lay in the Thrillers. George Lay was the lead singer of Swallow.
Now, what time period, Joe, is this? Was this early 70s?
Yeah, 70, 71. They did 2 albums on Warner Brothers. And Phil Green autographed my copy, of course, all those years ago, but then he came up here and saw me. We go way back, Phil. And
have they reissued those recordings, or?
Of course not. No, they probably, maybe. There's the Sundays label, and there's the Wounded Bird, and they kind of have the market cornered these days.
It was terrific. When I had John Sebastian last summer, we had, of course, thanks to you, we had Robin Lane open, and I was thrilled that.
I'm sorry I missed the show.
Oh, it was a terrific show. She was wonderful. She put on a wonderful show, but I was thrilled to find out that they finally reissued her original recordings.
But they didn't reissue them with her dad's big hit.
No.
You know who her father is, right?
Well, I know that he wrote a big hit for Dean Martin.
That he wrote for Frank Sinatra, actually, but it didn't hit for Frank. Story goes that he wrote it for Frank Sinatra, Frank recorded it, and then they were in the studio, and they needed another song because the producer didn't like the song they had in it, and Kenny Lane, Robin's father, piano player for Dean, pulled out Everybody Loves Somebody Sometime, and when the producer did it the pop version, Dean Martin had a bunch of pop hits in that flavor, so that started his career as a solo singer in a big, big way.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that she was a guest vocalist with Neil Young. I mean, these are the things that you go back, and thanks to the internet and different things, when you really read up on your local history, she was probably no more than, what would you say, in her early 20s when she sang Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere.
And, the thing is, it was on Reprise Records, and that's the label that Dean Martin was on. So I don't know if her dad brought her to the recording studio or if she met Neil Young on her own, but it's just coincidental that her father's hit and her first record with Neil Young are both Reprise.
I wonder if that's, it'd be interesting to ask her. And next time you talk to her, you'll have to get the backstory on that, because I've never thought about that in that context. That's true. Because I always thought she was hanging out in Laurel Canyon with, Stills and Neil Young, and somehow had some sort of relationship to get into that fold. But you're right, there could have been a connection with her dad.
And Dean and Frank, I think, co-owned the label. I'm not sure. So it's Reprise was a very interesting Warner Brother imprint. Interesting,
obviously, too, because, you have Jimi Hendrix.
On Reprise, that's right. That's right.
At that point when Nancy Sinatra released These Boots Are Made for Walking, that was probably when Frank and Dino were scratching their heads saying, this is going in the wrong direction.
Well, it's his daughter. I thought they must have thought it was going in the right direction. They were selling records.
Yeah, but I don't think they were probably big fans of the 60s counterculture. I think at that point they were well into their, mid to late 40s, early 50s, and they were probably looking at a lot of the groups that were coming out and saying, this is not what we expected with this label.
Oh, I'm sorry. Daddy's Little Girl and, you know, Lee Hazelwood crafting those songs. Oh, no, I think Frank Sinatra had a very heavy hand in making those songs hits. You need the promotion team and the support of the label.
You do. And that's another act. I mean, I think about potential shows in the future. Nancy Sinatra would certainly be one that would be of interest.
She would. Now, I just interviewed Mark Farner of Grand Funk Railroad and Burton Cummings of the Guess Who.
You know, I think that Grand Funk are fantastic. Now he's touring, but they're also touring without him as Grand Funk Railroad. Who is the singer in Grand Funk Railroad without Mark Farner?
Well, it's the fellow from 38 Special, and when I interviewed Don Brewer, I can't remember the guy's name, the guy from 38 Special. He goes, oh, the guy from 38, that's what I called him. You know, sorry.
Yeah, one of the Van Zants?
I don't know. But there's also Bruce Kulick of Kiss in the band. So it's Bruce Kulick, the fellow from 38 Special. Look, I was never a 38 Special fan, okay? And then Don Brewer and Mel Shasher from Grand Funk. So you've got a bit of a hybrid. But Mark Farner is the heart and soul of Grand Funk. And sure, they should reunite,
the heart and soul of the Guess Who.
Right. And we interviewed the Guess Who separately from Burton Cummings. But being fans, Phil, you know, you're a fan. You know, you got to get the story. You got to talk to these fellows.
And what's the story? And what's the dynamic as far as how Burton Cummings feels, obviously, about performing and going out as a solo artist versus going out with the Guess Who? Well,
I think as these guys get older, there's so much acrimony, and I'm guessing, but I've interviewed them all, so I have maybe a little bit of a feel. I think they're both making enough money on their own that if they got back together, they might not make as much. You know, the Guess Who does very well for themselves, even though it's kind of a cover act with the rhythm section, right?
You have to wonder. I mean, it's interesting. And I look at those scenarios, the same thing that happened last year when John Sebastian, because the Love and Spoonful were playing as the Love and Spoonful, and obviously Creedence Revisited are playing as Creedence Revisited.
But who's the lead singer of Creedence Revisited? This is a good one.
I don't know, but I have heard from people who have seen them that he's phenomenal.
It's John Tristano from the band People that had the big #1 hit with I Love You, written by the Zombies.
I did not know that, but I bet that's a good show. That is a potential show that you could say you're going to have a great night out hearing those songs, and God bless Stu Cook. You know, what else would he do? I mean, he has to make a living, and obviously if there's some kind of a breakdown in the relationship, does he continue to perform as more or less a tribute show? Because what do you call that? When the singer's still living and they're performing as a essentially revival or a cover act, you can't really call it Creedence Clearwater Revival, and that's probably why it's revisited, because John Fogerty is out there and alive and well. But in the case of the Love and Spoonful, maybe it's an ownership, maybe there's some kind of a lawsuit that's out there that they had a fight. It just seems a lot of stuff to go through at this stage in life. And you might be right, it might be a financial thing, or you just don't know.
I think they're all making so much money. You know, the Guess Who did as many people as Burton Cummings and Grand Funk, and Burton Cummings and Mark Farner, so go figure.
Now, where was that show?
That was at the Hat Show with Chachi LaPrette was there, because it was the remnants of the Oldies 103 summer series. And they had shut down Oldies 103, but they still had Rick Springfield and the Farner and Cummings thing to go, so they had to keep doing it. So ZLX got behind the show I went to, and then 104.5 Mix got behind the Rick Springfield show.
You know, that's good to hear about that, and I think I need to reach out to Chachi, because he would probably be very interested in coming up to Gloucester. I know it's a hike for him, but he'd probably be interested in that Cowsill show.
Well, he's going to be on this show very soon. We've been negotiating. He's an old dear friend, as you know. So we're going to have Chachi on here on Visual Radio. He should come up to the Cowsill show, being the Beatles freak that he is.
He emceed the John Sebastian show, and it was interesting, because when he asked John Sebastian, how would you like to be introduced? And John Sebastian said to him, ladies and gentlemen, John Sebastian. And I said, that's kind of an interesting... and then I realized that's how they introduced him at Woodstock.
And, John Sebastian is very laid back, and he would not grant me an interview.
I was surprised by that. He was so laid back and so
Not at your show.
genial. I was very surprised that he didn't want to do that, and but I think he did get some good footage. Did you not?
No, I didn't go to his show. I went to the show at the Passim about 14 years ago, okay, with John Sebastian. I was not at the Kowloon show.
That's right. I forget. What was it was the Mitch Ryder show that you came to.
Yeah, but we got a good interview with the blues guy, James Montgomery. Yeah, we got a great interview with James, and I've known James forever, and finally got him on camera. And we interviewed Mitch Ryder before at the old Vincent's down at the old whatever it was, Chateau de Ville.
Oh yeah, but did you get any footage of Mitch Ryder that night?
Yes, we did. I thought we got it to the Kowloon.
I think you did. I think Andy's got the DVD. I haven't seen it. I'd love to see it.
I thought he was going to put one of the songs up on the Kowloon website.
Well, I think he probably needs to get a little more technology where he's got some of that streaming video. Maybe you could give him some advice on that. I think they definitely need a little more streaming video on the YouTube. And you see a lot of shows out there, and I'm surprised how little footage is on YouTube for the Kowloon, considering how many shows they've had.
Well, we'll get permission. We'll put some up for you.
Good.
Hey, there's a theater in Medford called the Chevalier. Have you heard of it?
I have not heard of it. Is it the Chevalier?
It's the 5th largest concert hall in Boston proper. 2,000 seats. It should be 2,400, but they blocked off 400 of them. 2,000 seats. And we're thinking of Visual Radio bringing in Mark Farner and Burton Cummings. Oh,
that would do incredibly well. I think that Mark Farner, even just alone, would probably sell that out.
I don't think he'd sell it out, but I think he'd do well.
You might even be able to do 2 shows. That's a big event.
Yeah, so we're thinking of in the very near future, like October, November. Visual Radio wants to. Here we are interviewing all these rock stars. Why don't we bring them to the town?
Well, I think it's a terrific idea. If you have a venue, the facility over in Lynn, which is City Hall, they're doing a lot of concerts. Have you noticed how many concerts they've done over the past year?
Well, it's a bit of at the Medford City Council meetings, which no one outside of Medford sees, of course. They're yelling about the Lynn Auditorium, and why aren't we doing this at the Chevalier? Because the politicians in Medford are lazy. I'll say it right on camera. Not all of them, some of them. So, we're going to take the initiative. I'm talking to the concert hall itself and some of the town fathers in Medford who are all for this. So we're going to try to do something like the Lynn Auditorium's doing.
I think it's a great idea, and I think that if you can get the support of the community, which obviously you've done with the radio show and the cable show, people will be able to tune in, and you can cross-promote, and it's a win-win scenario. It's great.
Well, I'd love to put the Medford station under the Chevalier, but when you come down to Medford, you're going to call me up. I'm going to give you a tour. Do you know Warren Scott from the channel?
I remember him. In fact, that's the blast from the past, because I remember Harry Boris, who I believe
the owner,
the fellow who was running the channel at that point.
Harry's on my Facebook if you're looking to say hi.
And when I was at the Boston Phoenix many moons ago, my good friend Jim Berkowitz, Berkey, who you probably have seen on the internet, he's got a terrific talking about some great classic Boston rock and roll. He has a web channel on YouTube, and he had a cable show back in the mid to late '80s, and he's got some great footage of a lot of great Boston bands. And I'll send you the link that Berkey has on his YouTube channel. But
he was very good to me in the day, Jim. I remember.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, he was very good to me in the day.
And a champion of local music, and just one of the most enthusiastic people when it came to local bands. But he has a YouTube channel, but he worked, and I think one of his accounts was the channel. I remember going in there and meeting Harry Boris and Warren Scott, and I think Janet Planet that's a blast in the past. She was his secretary.
Awesome lady. Hey, Warren's at the Chevalier now. He now is the guy that gives the tours when people want to see the room.
Well, I'd love to see the venue, so I'll come in and we can maybe...
yeah, we got to get together, Phil.
But you're going to come up for the consoles.
Yeah, is it the 13th or the 15th?
It's the 13th, Thursday the 13th. The show starts at 7, there's going to be a Q&A, which will be, and it's an intimate venue. It only holds about 115, 120 people. So I would say get there early and try to, get involved to maybe go downstairs and buy some of the vinyl and come upstairs and have a great night and watch a film which is not widely circulated right now because they haven't cleared all the rights issues to get it released. So they're only able to screen it in certain festivals in this type of a setting. So this is a great opportunity to see the family band film, which I still haven't seen and I'm looking forward to. If nothing else, it's going to be a great night having an intimate performance with the Cowsills and seeing the film and hopefully having a terrific night out.
Now, September 9th is a Sunday, which is a week from this Sunday, the Dedham Holiday Inn. It's the Record Expo. So are the Cowsills still living in Rhode Island?
No. I believe that most of them are on the West Coast now. I know that Bob is living in California. I'm not sure where Susan is, but no.
I would invite them up to the Record Expo. You're invited. I'll put you on the guest list.
Are you going to have a booth?
I always have a booth there. But it's Burton Shields. It's like 34, 35 years they've been doing this. It was at the old SAC 57 in the old days.
Yep.
Now it's at the Dedham Holiday Inn, Sunday, September 9th at 10 a.m. So I'll be there, and if you want to come down, I'll shoot you an email.
Well, thank you, and I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing you at that show or your show or the Gloucester show. So thanks for the call, Joe, and we'll see you real soon.
Phil, thank you for calling in.
You're very welcome.
All right, bye.
Bye.
That was Phil Hopkins. He runs the Kowloon, and it's so cool because the Kowloon, Andy Wong, one of the owners of the Kowloon, is on vacation, so they moved the show up to the Cape Ann Community Theater. Coincidentally, Robert, the owner, was going to be here tonight. One of the 5 guests, we had the Yardbird set up. I wanted to have the Alan Wilson book rescheduled. A lot of local rock bands. It's funny, but Phil Hopkins filled the bill tonight, and it's time for our movie critic. If we can find him. He's on the air. It's a Hercules movie time. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, Hercules and the Moon Men. Look at that. What a memory. Last week was Hercules Unchained. This week is Hercules and the Moon Men. Uh-oh. Okay. We know other phone numbers, people. Hang in there. Plenty of phone numbers. Where's my pen? Uh-oh. I can't find Frank. All right, one more number.
Stritto, talking about movies.
Hey, Frank, I wasn't sure what number to call. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. How you doing?
Good. Is it Hercules and the Moon Men?
Hercules against the Moon Men. It's you gotta be be precise. And this is one of the weirder movies you've shown. It's let's see. Last week we showed Hercules Unchained, which did not with Steve Reeves, which did not start the sword and sandals, the Italian muscle men movie craze, but it was early on. And this one is near the end. Hercules Against the Moon Men is 1964, and I guess within a year or two the whole craze would be done, and all the Muscle Man movies coming out of Italy would be done. This is actually an Italian-French production.
Okay.
And the leading man is named Alan Steele, but his real name is Sergio Sciani, so he's the Italian. And the leading lady, who is the evil queen of Samara, is a French actress named Dani Claire, and they're both in their 20s. And what strikes me about a lot of old movies, and I guess we can call a 1964 movie old.
We can now.
Yeah, is that people look so much older than their age. And both Hercules and the Queen of Samara are in their 20s when they make this movie. But I think if modern viewers watch it, they'll say, oh, he's He's pushing 40, she's 35. People just look younger now. It's it's a different age. People are living longer and they're looking younger. So now it's kind of a weird movie. I mean, it's all over the map. There's a plot line in it, but there's one fight after another, one daring deed after another.
If it's Italian French, I'm going to blame the French.
Yeah, we'll blame the French. I don't mind. But it's fun, but it's a little strange. A lot of the Italian muscle man movies, the Hercules movies, began. They were basically like old westerns. There's the hired gun comes to town to clean out the evil guys who are making life miserable for everybody. Turn the Lone Ranger into Hercules, and turn the evil rancher into the evil king or queen, and you have an Italian muscle man movie. And as the genre went on, and this is a genre that only lived five years, certainly less than 10 years. You can argue as to when these things started and ended, but this is a short-lived genre. They evolved in the war. They kept looking for new elements, so some of the science fiction comes in. So there's a little bit of that in here with the Moon Men, but you don't see that much of the Moon Men.
And it's not on the moon, right?
It's not. No, the Moon Men come to. There's a place in ancient Greece which has been basically enslaved by these guys from outer space, and they make a deal with the queen, who is all too happy to take whatever they'll give her to give her the power. I don't want to spoil the plot, but that you learn that in the first few minutes, and it's Hercules that comes to clean up the town.
I can't stand it when they don't do it on the moon. Just get some rocks and turn the lights off, and you're on the moon. That's true. Now, one of the charms of these movies is that when they get outdoors, they're in Italy, or sometimes they're in Tunisia, and sometimes they're filming them around real ruins. So you do get to see that. And but with the Sahara right there, they could have said this is the moon, and we would have believed them. And if they said people can, like you and I, can go to the moon and breathe there and do superhero feats, it wouldn't be the most incredible thing this movie is trying to claim. So you're quite right. That is fascinating. We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Well, what movies have you seen lately?
I saw The Premium Rush.
How was that?
I really liked it. Did you see Speed with Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock?
I loved Speed. I didn't care that much for Speed 2, but I loved Speed.
Not many people like Speed 2. In fact, more people like Beverly Hills Cop 3 than like Speed 2.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm guessing. But David Koepp was on my show, the director. He wrote Jurassic Park and Day After Tomorrow and Angels and Demons and one of the Spider-Man movies. So David Koepp is the director.
Okay.
With Joseph Gordon-Levitt from Batman, Dark Knight Rises.
Yep.
And I think it's a great movie because they're on bikes. These are bike messengers in a very intriguing plot with a corrupt cop scrambling all over Manhattan to kind of, I don't want to give anything away, but it's speed on a bicycle. It's speed on a bicycle.
All right.
And I think Koepp does an amazing job of keeping your attention with the stop action, and I think he does some beautiful imagery in this. I just really like the movie.
Well, it's on my list of things to say. I'm ashamed to say, here I am reviewing movies for you, and I haven't been to the movies in about a month. The fates and muses have just conspired against me to let me get into a theater. I've been watching things on TV. I had to stay home with a sick relative on Saturday, and it was John Wayne Day on AMC. And I saw The Shootist, and I'd seen snippets of The Shootist before, but which I liked, but I really loved that movie. That was the highlight of my Saturday, mainly because I couldn't get out. I had to watch TV all day. And but I got to get to the theaters because there's a lot there I want to see. I haven't seen The Bourne Legacy.
Oh, I like it.
I guess The Possession is coming out this weekend. I'd like to see that.
Bourne Legacy and Premium Rush are very exciting movies. 44 seconds left.
Okay.
You're back. I'm glad you aren't in New Orleans this week, Frank.
Yeah, we got out. I got out just before actually, a few years ago. I haven't got time to tell you, but I woke up that morning and they were evacuating the city, and that was an adventure. And it took us forever to get out of there because the roads were jammed. But yes, I was glad I got out on Sunday. And even then, I could start to see people were evacuating. People that said, I'm not going to take another chance, were getting out. So the roads were jammed for a Sunday afternoon. But I'm glad it didn't do much to New Orleans. I feel bad for it did do some damage to people that are around the area, and I feel bad for them.
And that's our show for tonight. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. That's our show, people. Thank you, Dave Gotti.